And we're back. This is Tak Oda, CIO of Attaché for Business, and I'm joined here today by Lisa Hammond, our CEO and HR expert. We're continuing our way down the list. We're making pretty good progress. Top 10 mistakes that small business owners and entrepreneurs make when hiring their employees. So let's see the whole list if we can, just to see where we are.
All right, let's look at the whole list.
Aha, mistake number four is in red. We're continuing the theme of highlighting things in red, but this time it's warranted, not knowing the red flags. So this seems like it's gonna be pretty interesting. So let's just dive in. What are the red flags?
All right, so red flags, the number one red flag I would say is if you get someone to come into an interview and they start bad mouthing their former employer.
Okay.
And
What does that indicate? I mean, I can see why that would be a problem, but what do you feel like that tells you about the person?
so it tells you a number of things. One, it tells you that the person's not very sophisticated in terms of their ability to know what is appropriate to say and what's not at any given time.
Hmm.
And the other thing is, if they're bad mouthing their former employer, they're probably going to bad mouth you at some point.
Ah, good point.
So you want to, so that's the number one red flag. Um, the number two red flag I would say is if they hem and haw about giving you information, like they don't want to share information with you, and generally that'll show up with a lot of, well, I would, I could, I might, they're not giving you definitive answers. They're giving,
Subjunctive clause, right? Yeah,
yeah,
lots of theoretical stuff.
exactly.
Mm.
And that tells you that they probably don't have the experience.
Hmm.
Um, Now, here's one that is probably a red flag for you. And that is a lot of people will say I, and other people will say we.
Hmm.
And neither of those really tells you whether the person did it or not. So, so when you're asking a question of, tell me about a time when you did X, Y, Z, tell me about your experience leading a project. And if they say, well, when I was leading this project, I, did this, I presented this, I shared this, I did, and it's all I, then you want to go back and you want to say, so were you the only person who did it, or were there others involved in it? And then when
Mm.
they give you that answer, it's, well, what was your role? The other is
Mm.
if they're saying we constantly, it may just be one of those people that says we. They use kind of a royal we all the time. Um,
Mm.
and you might want to then say, so what was your role in that? And it's like, oh, well, I did the whole thing.
Hmm.
Then well, who else was involved? And they'll tell you. And like, well, who's we?
Another thing that you might be cluing into is when they say we, it might be their team did it, but they kind of were pretty passive about it, right?
It could be, or it could be that, yeah, they're just very, very team focused. So, it could
Right.
be any of those things. And that's what you want to really dig into it. And don't make an assumption based on how you would use the word.
Gotcha. So this one is a little bit more nuanced. When you get these I or we's, dig in, find out a little bit more about what they mean.
Right.
I would assume. Okay.
So those are the two biggest red flags. The number one is if they're bad mouthing their company, and then
Mhm.
number two is, it's, I don't know if it's really a red flag. It's kind of a red flag for you to remember, oh, let me figure out if I'm making assumptions based on what they're saying, and really dig into what they're saying and how they're saying it.
Okay. Gotcha. Anything else?
Uh, I think the other one is the generalizations, as we were talking about. If they're making a lot of generalizations, you want to ask them, to tell you a time when they did something, and have them really explain what that is. And don't let them get off the hook by saying, well, I would.
Mm-hmm. I did. That's what you're
Yeah,
after.
here's what I
Right.
did. Exactly.
All right, great. All right, thanks, Lisa. So this was a pretty nice one. And next week we will move on to mistake number three. Won't tell you what it is, but if you subscribe, you'll find out when that video comes out. All right. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks,
And thanks
Doc.
for tuning in. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.